Looking to be more productive and jump those hurdles of change and challenge easier? You've come to the right place. Welcome to Thrive in Life with your hosts, Zaheen Nanji.
Hey, and welcome to episode number 36 of Thrive in Life. I'm your host, Zaheen Nanji. And today we are going to talk to Dr. Zarin Gillani. And I'm going to do an intro for her first before I bring her on. And I also wanted to share that, you know what? I have a hunch that you're enjoying these interviews. And if you've missed any in the past, then I highly recommend that you go to my website, zaheennanji.com, and click on Thrive in Life show and pick anyone that you want to watch. And I know that every time I listen to a audio or I watch the video that is on my website, I get so much information from that. And sometimes I'll rewatch them because I may want an idea, I may just want to feel inspired. Even when I interview the guest, I get so much out of it. So remember, this is Thrive in Life, where we help you make resilience your first reflex. All right, let me introduce Dr. Zarin to you before we bring her on. She is and I'm going to read this, I have my notes here. She is a life coach, and she holds a Ph.D. in clinical and educational psychology. She's an international speaker and has trained employees in companies like Dell and Samsung. In October of 2015, she was featured the Women of Distinction magazine. So she was actually featured in the Women of Distinction magazine. And she's releasing her new book here at the end of September called Live Your Best Life, The Time Is Now. I really enjoyed interviewing her because I loved how she explained that she was in a conflict when it came to her career, because as a clinical psychologist, the way you help your clients is not really by coaching. And she explains that more, so I'm not going to go into that. And then she explains how she decided, you know what, that was not for her. And she made this huge shift and she got into coaching. And then as we continued to talk, she explained the difference between thriving and surviving. And she even gave us tips on how to be more resilient. So she's very well known. And I will also give the website in the show notes. And it's drzaringillani.com. I think that's her website. But I'm sure if you Google her, you will find her. And her name is spelled Zarin, and her last name is Gillani, Gillani. Now, for those of you who are listening, just so you know that we record this on Zoom, and then we put it on YouTube, and that's what you find on my website, zaheennanji.com. But we also convert the video into an audio and have that on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and iHeartRadio. And I do my best to do a podcast every week, but sometimes it's difficult. So I just want to make sure that when I'm out traveling and speaking, it gets a little hard, but I do my best to do at least 2 or 3 every month. So hang in there and you'll be getting more and more every time. Okay, so without further ado, let's bring her on. Welcome, Dr. Zarin, and thank you so much for being on my show.
Thank you so much, Zain, for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
I'm so excited. So let's just get into how to thrive in life. And my first question always to a guest is, what have been some of the challenges that you've overcome in your life or that you've gone through?
Okay. Thank you for asking that question. Although it's for me, it's an extremely wide question because I have a number of challenges that I've gone through in my life. And to name a few, One was I was born left-handed, and I had this wonderful teacher who believed that left-handed children or people are influenced somehow by the devil. So she decided to change me from a left-handed person into a right-handed person. So she successfully made me into an ambidextrous. My other challenges, which I would really like my audience, to really know, is that in life we are always going to have a challenge, and challenges are good. They're not always bad. Challenges are good. My great challenges, if you will, is that in 1 year I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I also had a near-death experience.
Wow.
So I worked through those challenges. They were very difficult, but here I am. I have survived. And my recent challenge was when I decided to transition myself from 38 years of being a clinical and educational psychologist into a life purpose coach therapist. That was quite a transition and quite a challenge.
Wow. So you've gone through a lot. And I can completely relate to the experience that you had with your health, because I went through the same thing last year. And yes, you're so right in saying that we grow through those obstacles in life. And I can truly attest to that. But also changing your career can be scary. And it's a huge change, I think. So my next question to you is, after going through these kinds of challenges and obstacles, what is your vision for your life now?
My vision, for as long as I can remember, has been and has even become more crystallized now after this transition of my profession, is that I would absolutely, I want to be able to impact the lives of as many individuals as possible by making a difference in their worldview of themselves. And the reason why I say the worldview of themselves is because 99% of the people, or today I can safely say 95% of the people, see themselves as always being short of something. They're always feeling that they are not better off than another person, or they do not have a certain ability. So their own personal worldview must change so that in relation to others around them, they can not just survive, but actually thrive.
Now, what made you go into that kind of like view of that, like, this is what you want to do? What came up in your life that made you want to do that? I know you say that you've always wanted to do that, but something must have occurred for you to, first of all, change to go from a clinical psychologist to now what you're doing as a life coach.
Right.
And then to have this really strong sense of what you want to do with your life.
Thank you, Zaheen, for asking me that. So let me just give you a little background of being a clinical psychologist. When a client or an individual goes for counseling, because that's what psychologists and psychiatrists do, they counsel people. When they go for counseling, the individual is seen by a psychologist or a psychiatrist as quote unquote, for lack of a better word, broken.
Oh, okay.
So it seems like that we as psychiatrists and psychologists tend to see the individual as lacking, needing someone to hold their hand. And unfortunately, the reason why that also happens is, in defense to the psychiatrist and the psychologist, is because the individual sees himself or herself as someone that's broken and needs fixing. And the broken part comes from their past, which is controlling them and their personal, self-limiting beliefs. So, for example, if someone said to you that you're not good enough or you will not become anything in your life, somebody's words don't have to become your reality.
Yes.
However, we allow, as human beings, we allow that to influence us, especially because when it is said by a person who we look up to. So it can be a parent, an older sibling, a teacher, so these people, or a best friend. So these people, we in the world of psychiatrists and psychologists, it is called giving your power away.
Yes.
Now, so coming back to counseling, to coaching, when I started seeing my clients as not moving forward and being stuck in the past, it was always that this is what happened to me, this is what happened to me. I realized that there has to be something I can do to get them out of that. And I became frustrated. It took me 5 years of struggle, real struggle, where I saw them as I could see potential in them, but they couldn't see that potential. And that frustrated me to such a degree that I actually started losing sleep on it.
Wow.
And I started searching, and I thought, okay, there has to be there has to be an avenue where they can step out of the mold that they've created for themselves and get into a place of fresh air, of sunshine, of better energy. And in my search, of course, I came across, life coaching. But my story is a bit unique in a sense that, there is a Zen saying that when the student is ready, the teacher will come.
Yes, I've heard that.
My teacher came in the form of a text message all the way from England.
Oh.
Someone from England, and I know this person very well, sent me a text and said, would you consider life coaching? You would be awesome. And I thought, wow. And now we have to remember that for decades, the world has associated the word coach with the world of athletes.
That's right. Yeah.
But this is life purpose coaching. This is when an individual, a coach who is an expert in their area, are actually able to support and guide the client through critical questioning, and the client comes to their answers by themselves.
Yes.
The coach does not give them the answer. In counseling, it is totally the opposite.
Really?
Yes. So in counseling now, the world of counseling is changing quite a bit because they are incorporating some of the coaching abilities and processes into their counseling. But at the time when I became a psychologist, it was as if that I had to carry my client, and I would tell my client how to live their life, and my client would live that life. So my client was totally dependent on me. In coaching, my client is not dependent on me.
I love that, where you say that coaching is about them being independent.
Yes.
And that is an amazing way to look at it. Thank you for actually sharing that, because I'd never even thought of that before until you mentioned it.
Coaching is extremely empowering. It is extremely liberating for both. For me, because I came from the counseling background, for me, it was such a huge liberation because now I didn't have to carry my clients. And actually, I was able to assess and see that there are so many counseling clients that I had who transitioned into coaching very quickly because they were so capable, but they didn't see their own potential. They didn't see their own greatness within themselves. I could see, and that was my other level of frustration.
Right. So it seems that you kind of gave up, or you sacrificed your psychology degree or what you have done there to completely overhaul and change the way you want to. I can't even say the word treat, because you're not doing that really. You're empowering them. But if there's anything else you would like to add on what else you have sacrificed to create the vision that you want.
I I would not really think of it as a sacrifice, and I'll tell you why. Because I know that in today's world, where the degrees and all those are quite important, and absolutely, I work extremely hard. I remember crying for my final degree of education psychologist. I cried because I knew I just could not believe that I could finish it. And if it had not been for the encouragement from my husband and my children, I would not have been able to do it. However, and so in today's world, people would say, oh, that's going backwards. For you to give up being a psychologist and becoming a life coach, that's going backwards.
That's right. Yeah.
Here is the significant thing I want the world to see.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I personally went backwards, if you will. I did go backwards in terms of my profession. But guess what? My clients went forwards.
Mm.
For me, that's what matters the most. The degree is just a piece of paper. Because I know my information. Every time a client comes to me, I don't run to the books and look at the symptoms. No, I have my knowledge. I already have it. And I already have the experience. So I don't need the books anymore. That does not mean I do not read, or that doesn't stop me from learning or continue to learn, because I'm a lifelong learner.
Mm-hmm.
However, for me, it's a huge win-win, because my clients who were not moving forward have literally moved forward. And I was able to transition 11 clients right away from counseling into coaching.
That's amazing. That's great.
That's a huge win-win.
Of course.
Okay?
Yeah, no, that's a great story. So, as you know, for the audience who is either listening on a podcast or viewing this on YouTube or on my website, this show is all about thriving in life, right? So you've already shared so much about how to thrive, in a sense, that how you just overhauled, like I said, the way you help others from going to another way of doing it, right? But in your words, what does it mean to thrive? And if you want to use something from your clinical background or your life coaching background, go ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you. First and foremost, we need to understand, why do we use the word thrive? Because there's always the other side of the coin. So the other side of the coin is survive.
Yes.
So survive can be, somebody who's surviving from paycheck to paycheck. Somebody who is just surviving because they can wake up in the morning and go to their regular job, which they do not like, but they don't know what else to do. And then they come back home and they feel miserable. And they just say, well, I'm surviving. So in a psychologist's world, we would say they're coping.
Yes.
All right. For me, thriving is like flourishing. So I want you to think of a plant. You plant a little, seed, and you water it and you nurture it and allow the sun to get to it, and then you see the plant come up, and now you know that it has started blooming, and so that is the process of thriving. In a counselor's, in a counseling chair, when a client is in a counselor's office, most of the time the client is surviving, trying to learn coping methods.
Okay.
They're trying to get coping skills. Whereas in a coaching office, the client it's the client's agenda. The client is the king. The client drives the hour the way the client wants it. And so the client is blossoming, the client is flourishing, the client is succeeding, the client is continuously, on an advancement of the journey. To me, that's thriving.
Mm.
And many times when you're talking to people, the first thing when you think of surviving and thriving, that they always relate human beings thriving or survival to money. But it's not money. Money is the almost the last of the list. But in my opinion, what about the mental capacity? What about the spiritual capacity? What about the emotional, the psychological, the physiological? All those have to be thriving. All those have to be thriving. When do we get a person to have their soul sing? When does a person's soul sing? Every morning they wake up, their soul is singing. They go to bed, their soul has been singing all day long. When do we bring them to that point? That to me is thriving in the ultimate manner.
I love the way you say that. And it's so true, because when we talk about how to thrive in life, a lot of people think it's about just coping and kind of getting to the next thing and the next thing. And I'm so glad that you actually changed that thinking right away, saying that it's about flourishing and it's not just about coping. And I like the examples that you used. So I know that you've already kind of mentioned what is the difference between thriving and surviving. So what kind of tips, I guess, or what kinds of things do you, okay, let's just go back a bit. What kinds of things do you coach on, or is there a specific area that you work with?
I am pretty much able to coach any individual in any area of their life to start with.
Okay.
However, my expertise, where I am putting more of my energy, is actually coaching, and you're going to find this as a surprise, coaching actually psychiatrists and psychologists. And let me tell you why.
Wow. Okay.
Having been in there, I understand their pain. I understand their frustrations. I know how they feel. There are many psychiatrists who are on the same medication that they prescribe their clients. And I want to share with them some of the things that they can incorporate in their office through their counseling, some coaching methodologies, which can improve and help the client to move from surviving into a bit of a more positive mode, but also to make a difference in themselves. Because when they initially started, there was a level of energy that they started with. There was a certain level of joy that they started with. And somehow along the way, they've lost that. And they need to bring that back so that they don't need to be on prescription. And when they can survive without the prescription, they will be able to see their client as being able to survive without the prescription. Because at the end of the day, really, medication has so many side effects. We know that, and it's a proven fact. I don't even have to prove anything on that. And in the long run, it's not very good for any individual, because when you take one medication, the side effect expects you to take another medication, and the side effect of that one gets you to take another. So it's such a vicious cycle. And that's what I think that as a society, we end up creating. However, there are ways of addressing your challenges and going over your hurdles without medication. Let me ask you a question. When you're driving on a road, and we have, especially in residential areas, we have those little humps, to slow us down, right? Why do you think those humps are there? Those humps are there so that we can slow down, and also to maybe save a life.
Yeah. And
isn't it?
Yeah. And when you asked me that question, why do we have those humps? The first thing that came to mind was, I think, to bring my mind back to where I am so I can become aware of what is going on.
Absolutely. You nailed it.
Yes.
So then, in my opinion, whatever happens to us as individuals in life, it's a hump.
Yeah.
And we go over humps every single day. So why not? And I feel very strongly that there are times that as adults, we need to go back and become a child once in a while. Children are so free Children just love themselves. Look at babies when they are born. The baby loves itself even in its own poo.
Yeah.
You know, the baby is 100% sure that with or without that poo, it's going to be loved unconditionally. I think we really need to get there. We need to.
Yeah. Well, I love the tip about the hump. And I was wondering if you would like to share, 1 to 2 tips of how the audience, like whenever they come to a hump, and they need to slow down, what kinds of things can they do right away to start to think about thriving and not just surviving?
Thank you. I've got more than 2, if possible.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the first thing I want to share is a little quote, which I love that quote, and I have used that quote in many areas of my own life. Okay, and I'm going to just read this loud. There is no progress without change. There is no change without learning. There is no learning without questions. There are no questions without curiosity. Then there is no curiosity or questions without an active inquiring mindset. Now, having said that, when any one of us come to a hump, 2 things have to happen. One is what you mentioned, go into your reflective mode, bring yourself back to the current situation, and then look at what decisions were made that brought us to that hump, and how can we now maybe modify those decisions, or what other choices or options do we have? Number 1. Number 2, if we cannot be flexible to change, then it's going to be very difficult for us to move forward, because we are going to just become, we just fossilize ourselves, we just become like a lump of a big stone, just laying there on the street and not moving unless somebody pushes it. So I think that it's very important for us to, number 1, be extremely flexible. And number 2, we must be open to change, because hurdles are small ways of telling us that there are certain things we need to change. Maybe our mindset, maybe the way we think, maybe we need to learn something. Maybe we do not have enough information about a certain thing, and that is why we've come to this hurdle.
Right.
So it is so open to so many different areas and so many, worldviews, if you will. And that is why it's so important for every individual to change their worldview in relation to the other people around them. And yes, I understand that there are things that have been said to us when we were growing up, but that somebody's words that does not have to be our reality. And if we can absolutely believe in ourselves, because if we don't believe in ourselves, how can we believe in others?
Yes. Yeah.
We all have been, and we all have God-given gifts. So we all have strengths, and we all have abilities and capabilities. It's just that we underestimate ourselves so much. We have such greatness in us.
Yes. You're so right in that, and I know that you can also relate to that, because everything that has happened in my life has in fact not only made me stronger, but I can't even explain it. Like it's actually made me a better individual, where I can be of more service to others than just to myself. That's how I can really make that about me, that this is how the hurdles in my life have helped me. And you know what? We're almost at the end of the interview, and I don't want to just leave the audience here without knowing more about how they can get a hold of you, because I certainly have really enjoyed this interview, and I learned so much from my guests, and I hear the same from my audience, that they learn something or the other from everyone that I interview. And I also tell them that I learn more from them than I learn from myself.
which is always the case. I learn a lot from my clients.
Yes, exactly. So if they want to get a hold of you, Dr. Zarin, how would they do that?
Since I'm in the US, the email would be the best way to get hold of me. And my email is Dr. Zarin, DRZARIN @drzarin.com. My phone number, my cell phone is 512-825-0864.
Okay.
But if anyone emails me, I can immediately email them back and we can set up whatever they want,
Okay.
And I have clients. I mean, I am an international speaker and a presenter, and a trainer. So I travel quite a bit, and I also have clients from all over the world. And I'm open to Skyping in, and you taught me how to Zoom today. I didn't know how to, so I'm so glad I learned something new. And I would certainly look into using Zoom if anybody is, comfortable with that. Facebook, if anybody wants that. So I'm open to that. And I do support, I give them support through email and text messages.
Okay, wonderful. So I'll make sure to put your email into the show notes if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
Okay. So for those of you who, make sure that you connect with her if you want to learn more about her. I'll have everything else. If you need to get a hold of her through me, you know how to contact me through my website at zaheennanji.com. And I hope you got something out of this, because I know I did. And some of the lessons that I learned are, one, that coping, when we say coping, that really is not thriving. Thriving is flourishing. And that the two things that you want to do to be able to thrive is to be flexible and also to be aware of what is going on in your mind. And I love the quote that you shared with us. Who is the quote by?
It's Marilyn Adams. Marilyn Adams. I'll send it to you.
Okay, wonderful. So I'll put that in the show notes as well.
Lady who's done it. I absolutely love the way she thinks about change and learning.
Okay, wonderful. Well, there you have it. Now go thrive in life and make your life count. Until next time, bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to Thrive in Life with your hosts, Zaheen Nanji. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit ZaheenNanji.com. That's ZaheenNanji.com. We'll catch you on the next episode of Thrive in Life.